If you're climbing a ladder leaning against the wrong wall, climbing faster doesn't fix it. It makes it worse. Consistency doesn't correct direction. It deepens the original decision. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to leave. The question isn't whether you're disciplined, it's whether your discipline is keeping a mistake alive. There's an idea almost no one questions. Consistency is always a virtue. Persisting is noble. Continuing is admirable. Not quitting is a sign of character. You heard it in school. You saw it in success stories. You heard it from entrepreneurs, parents, mentors. The message repeats so often it stops sounding like an opinion. It becomes a moral rule. If someone fails, the automatic explanation is lack of consistency. If someone doesn't achieve what they wanted, it's assumed they lacked discipline. If someone changes direction, there's a quiet suspicion of weakness. Quitting became morally suspicious. Persistence became identity. And that's where the problem begins. The central belief sounds reasonable. Staying committed is better than walking away. Meaningful results take time. Anyone who leaves too early will never know how far they could have gone. It sounds responsible. It sounds mature. It sounds rational. But almost no one asks the essential question. Because persisting is not automatically virtuous, it is simply continuity. And continuity by itself does not guarantee that you're moving towards something that should be pursued. We're not defending laziness. We're not promoting impulsive quitting. We're pointing to something more uncomfortable. You might be extremely consistent in something you should never have started. If that's true, consistency is not strength. It is a mechanism for maintaining error. The reason this belief is so powerful is simple. It works in many real contexts. Learning an instrument requires repetition. Building physical fitness requires regular training. Developing a career takes years. Earning credibility demands time. Meaningful outcomes often depend on accumulation. If someone starts working out and quits after 2 weeks, they won't see results. If someone studies a language for a month and gives up, they won't become fluent. If someone launches a project and stops at the first obstacle, they'll never discover its potential. Daily experience reinforces the pattern. Practice allows adjustment. Adjustment leads to refinement. Refinement produces improvement. You see athletes training daily, musicians practicing for years, professionals dedicating decades to one field. None of this aligns with quitting. There's also fear of regret. What if I had kept going? Feels heavier than present discomfort. Consistency provides moral reassurance. You can tell yourself you didn't give up. Persisting protects the narrative of effort, and effort is deeply respected. There's another quieter fear. If you allow yourself to quit once, maybe you'll start quitting everything. So consistency becomes character training, internal discipline, proof of strength. All of this makes sense. That's exactly why it goes unquestioned. But there is one condition rarely examined. Consistency only works when the direction is correct, and direction is rarely reviewed. Consistency does not recalculate course, it maintains motion. If you chose a career at 18 based on external pressure and spent 10 years being disciplined inside it, consistency did not fix that decision, it reinforced it. You may be punctual, productive, responsible, respected, and still be accumulating invisible erosion. From the outside, it looks like success. Inside, there's no expansion, only continuation. Consider a relationship that has lost structural compatibility. You insist because relationships require effort. You invest time, conversation, adjustment. But the issue isn't lack of effort, it's misalignment. In this case, consistency doesn't strengthen, it prolongs something that should have ended. There's also the quieter version. Someone spends years pursuing a goal that no longer aligns with who they've become. They continue because they've already invested too much, because stopping would feel like waste, because changing would require admitting miscalculation. But past investment does not obligate future commitment. There is a point where persistence stops being strategy and becomes fear disguised as discipline. Fear of restarting, fear of appearing inconsistent, fear of admitting error. Society admires consistency, but rarely asks, consistent towards what outcome? You can be extremely consistent in mediocrity. You can be disciplined in something irrelevant. You can spend 10 years slightly improving at something you never should have started. And the longer you remain, the harder it becomes to leave. Consistency builds attachment. Attachment builds justification. Justification sustains permanence. Nothing collapses dramatically. Nothing explodes. Everything simply continues. And that's what makes the problem almost invisible. There's no obvious failure, only prolonged misalignment. The mind resists this idea because it threatens identity. If you see yourself as disciplined, admitting that your consistency might be misplaced creates deep internal conflict. It's not just about changing plans, it's about revising who you believe you are. There's also the sunk cost effect. The more time, money, and energy invested, the harder it becomes to walk away. Stopping feels like wasting everything that came before. So rationalizations appear. This is part of the process. Every worthwhile path has difficult phases. If I push a little longer, the breakthrough will come. Stories of late success feed that hope. There's always someone who almost quit before achieving something remarkable. But rarely do you consider the opposite possibility. What if there is no breakthrough waiting? Changing direction can look unstable. It can appear unfocused. It can look weak. So you stay, not because you're fully convinced, but because leaving creates sharper immediate discomfort than staying. Consistency becomes anesthesia. It spreads discomfort over time. The brain prefers diluted pain over abrupt rupture. That's why the idea that consistency might be harming you feels almost offensive. It challenges one of the most respected virtues, perseverance. But the mind is not defending virtue. It's defending psychological stability. The damage of misdirected consistency is not immediate. It accumulates. 1 year seems manageable. 5 years begin to weigh. 10 years become difficult to justify. The erosion doesn't arrive as collapse. It appears as chronic fatigue, recurring low-level frustration, the sensation of being constantly busy but rarely expanding. You wake up, perform, deliver, repeat. Nothing is catastrophically wrong, but nothing grows. Over time, you become competent in something you may never have consciously chosen. You gain stability. You build routine. You organize your life around that original decision. Finances, social circles, professional identity. Everything restructures itself around what you decided to maintain. Consistency grows deep roots, and deep roots are not easily removed. The outcome is not dramatic failure. It is refined stagnation. You move forward inches each year, but perhaps in the wrong direction. And the most subtle part, the sense of merit hides the emptiness. Because you work hard, because you are responsible, because you do not quit. Externally, everything looks respectable. Internally, something does not expand. But since you were taught that consistency is virtue, you rarely question whether you're applying it correctly. This is not an argument for impulsive quitting. It is not a celebration of instability. The issue is narrower and more uncomfortable. Consistency amplifies whatever path it touches. If the direction is aligned, it accelerates growth. If the direction is misaligned, it deepens the error. The problem is that consistency rarely comes with recalibration. You persist, but you don't reassess. You maintain, but you don't reevaluate. Persistence is admirable when clarity exists. Without clarity, it is extension. The real question is not, are you consistent? The real question is, are you consistent in the right thing? You may be committed. You may be giving maximum effort. You may be embodying exactly the discipline you were taught to value. And still, you may be sustaining something that should have been interrupted years ago. Consistency can build. It can also preserve what no longer deserves preservation. And as long as you confuse continuity with progress, the feeling of advancement may never be more than structured repetition. Persisting in what? That question doesn't comfort, and it doesn't answer itself.